My name is Claire, and I am 37 years old. I've been living in the United States for over a decade now, though I was born and raised in the Netherlands. Life here hasn't been easy, especially after my divorce 5 years ago. I live alone in a small apartment in Boston, far from the bustling crowds, where the silence offers some solace. But recently, my safe little world has been invaded. I work as a secretary at a mid-sized marketing firm. My boss, Mr. Jameson, is a tall, confident man in his late 40s. When I first started this job, he seemed professional, even charming. But over time, his demeanor toward me shifted, and not in a way that felt appropriate or respectful. It started subtly. Comments about my appearance would slip out during meetings. "Claire, you really brighten up the office with that smile," he would say, his eyes lingering a little too long. At first I brushed it off, thinking I might be reading too much into it. Compliments weren't inherently bad, were they? But soon the comments became more invasive. "That skirt looks amazing on you. It's a shame no one at home can appreciate it," he said once, his tone dripping with insinuation. I remember freezing, unsure of how to respond. His words were laced with a casualness that made it difficult to confront him without sounding overly sensitive. Then came the touches, light at first. A hand on my shoulder when he leaned over to look at my computer screen, a pat on my back that lingered just a moment too long. I started feeling uneasy, but I didn't know how to address it. What if I was overreacting? What if I lost my job? Yesterday things escalated. I was organizing files in his office, my back turned to him. Suddenly I felt him standing too close behind me. His breath was warm against my neck as he leaned in and whispered, "Claire, I think you deserve a little break. Why don't you join me for dinner tonight, just the two of us?" His hand lightly grazed my arm. I pulled away instinctively, my heart pounding. "Thank you, Mr. Jameson, but I'm busy tonight," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. The smile he gave me sent a chill down my spine. It wasn't friendly. It was predatory. Since then, I've been on edge, dreading every interaction with him. The office no longer feels safe. I've considered speaking to HR, but I'm terrified of retaliation. What if they don't believe me? Or worse, what if they do but choose to side with him anyway? He's powerful, and I'm just his secretary. I feel trapped, suffocated by the weight of his unwelcome advances. Each day at work is a battle against his behavior, against my fear, and against the voice in my head that tells me I should have seen this coming. But I refuse to let him break me. I'm stronger than this, and I'll find a way out of this nightmare. This morning, as I walked into the office, I felt my usual knot of anxiety tightening in my stomach. I spotted Mr. Jameson in the break room, chatting casually with one of the other executives. His laugh carried across the office, loud and overconfident. I avoided eye contact and hurried to my desk, praying for an uneventful day. But uneventful days no longer exist in my world. By mid-morning, Mr. Jameson called me into his office. My heart sank as I stood in the doorway, files clutched tightly to my chest. He motioned for me to sit, his grin unnerving. "I just wanted to go over a few things for the upcoming campaign," he said, his tone deceptively professional. I nodded, hoping this would be quick. But as he spoke, his eyes wandered, not to the documents in my hands, but to me, my face, my neckline, my legs. I felt exposed, as though I was being dissected under his gaze. When I didn't respond quickly enough to one of his questions, he leaned forward, his voice lowering. "Claire, are you feeling all right? You seem a little distracted." His hand reached across the desk, brushing mine. I pulled back as subtly as I could, my pulse racing. "I'm fine, Mr. Jameson," I said, forcing a smile. "Just a lot on my mind." He nodded, his smile growing. Well, if you ever need someone to talk to, you know my door is always open, or perhaps we could talk somewhere more private. I excused myself as soon as I could, practically fleeing to the safety of my desk, but the sense of safety was an illusion. His presence loomed over the office, a constant reminder that I wasn't truly free. During lunch, I sat alone in the break room, staring at my untouched sandwich. My thoughts were a whirlwind of fear and frustration. Why should I be the one to feel ashamed? Why should I be the one hiding? I knew I couldn't keep living like this. But what could I do? By the time the workday ended, I had made a decision. I stayed late, waiting for the office to empty. With trembling hands, I composed an email to HR, detailing Mr. Jameson's behavior. I hesitated before hitting send, every worst-case scenario playing out in my mind. But then I thought of the countless women who had been in my position, who had stayed silent out of fear. I wouldn't be one of them. As I hit send, a strange mix of terror and relief washed over me. This was only the first step, but it was a step forward. For the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. I didn't know what would happen next, but I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't alone in this fight. The day after sending that email felt like a lifetime. I arrived at work with my heart racing, every moment tinged with uncertainty. Would HR approach me today? Would Mr. Jameson retaliate? Each time I saw him walking through the office, my breath caught. I avoided his gaze and kept my head down, focusing on the work in front of me. Around midday, I received a message on my computer. It was from HR, asking me to come to their office for a meeting. My hands trembled as I read the words. This was it, the moment I had both dreaded and anticipated. I gathered my courage and made my way there, my heels clicking softly against the tiled floor. The meeting room was small and sterile, with a faint smell of coffee lingering in the air. 2 HR representatives greeted me, their expressions a mix of professionalism and concern. I took a seat, gripping my hands tightly in my lap. "Claire, thank you for coming," said the woman on the left, her name tag reading Ms. Peterson. "We received your email, and first, we want to commend you for speaking up. We understand how difficult this must be." Their words were reassuring, but I couldn't shake the feeling of vulnerability. I recounted everything: the comments, the touches, the incidents that had left me feeling degraded and unsafe. As I spoke, their faces remained neutral, though I detected flashes of sympathy in their eyes. "We take these matters very seriously," Ms. Peterson said once I finished. "We will be conducting a thorough investigation, and in the meantime, we will ensure steps are taken to protect you." By the time the meeting ended, I felt a small weight lifted. It wasn't over, not by a long shot, but I had taken another step forward. HR assured me that they would keep me informed, and I returned to my desk with a renewed sense of determination. The following week was a whirlwind. HR interviewed other employees, gathering evidence and corroborating my claims. The tension in the office was palpable, and I noticed that Mr. Jameson seemed more on edge. He still made his rounds, still tried to engage me in conversation, but his confidence had waned. It was as if he sensed the walls closing in around him. Then, one afternoon, everything came to a head. I was at my desk, typing up a report, when 2 HR representatives entered the office, accompanied by a man in a suit. Someone from the corporate legal team, I later learned. They walked straight to Mr. Jameson's office. Minutes later, he emerged, his face flushed with anger. He didn't look at me as he grabbed his coat and briefcase, escorted by the HR team. The office fell silent, everyone watching as he left without a word. I felt a mix of relief and disbelief. It was over. He was gone. In the days that followed, I learned that Mr. Jameson had been placed on administrative leave pending the outcome of the investigation. Eventually, he resigned quietly, avoiding further scrutiny. The company implemented new training programs and stricter policies to prevent future incidents, a small but significant victory. For the first time in months, I felt safe at work.